We've all turned up the radio to hear Brother Jimmy Lakey, from coast to coast and shore to shore. Now raise your voice. Oh, let us all Jimmy Lakey, get out of bed. Jimmy Lakey, raise your voice. Jimmy Lakey, hey, can't live without it with Jimmy Lakey. Jimmy Lakey.
All right, top of the morning to everybody. Here I am back in the Lakey Entertainment Towers. We call it the House of Lakey Studio number 2, my friends. And glad to be back in the United States of America. Everybody's good to be here in the United States of America. Made it through customs. They let me back in the country. The passport worked. It's a miracle, my friends, but here we are. It is the 8th day of December, year of our Lord 2025. Jimmy Lakey is my name, and it's a pleasure to have you here. I hope everybody's feeling good this morning. Everybody in the Christmas spirit. 'Tis the season to be jolly. Fa la 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 la. Yeah. All right. Good to have you. It's been a long time since I've been back in the studio. I hope I remember where everything is at here. I hope I know where everything's at. Here it is, ladies and gentlemen. You've been missing it. We will do meme roulette here in just a bit. We have the trusty Globe that has not been with us. What have been out of the studio? 10 days, 11 days, 12 days? I've been a while. And we're back. 8th day of December, year of our Lord 2025. As you know, the routine, a lot of you are checking in this morning, saying hello. I saw our friend Kevin saying a shout out on the YouTube channel, watching at the Denver International Airport. Good morning, Mr. Kevin. Good morning from Windsor, Colorado. Good morning to everybody else, wherever you're at. Let us know. We hear from Missouri every week. I know we have some Texans out there that like to check in as well. If you're in a state that does not represent it, I'd love to have you represented here on the program. We are not discriminatory. Even if you have elected a bat crap crazy liberal as your governor, like we have in Colorado, we still welcome you here to the program. The state of Oregon's always welcome. Washington is always welcome. California, you're iffy, but we'll tolerate you out there. Arizona, who's in Arizona? And Las Vegas, Nevada, always love to hear from you. So wherever you're at, on the forum that you're watching this show, if you're on YouTube, just comment in the comment section. If you're on Facebook, if you're on the X, the Twitter, always just let us know where you're at, and we would love to give you a shout out and say Heidi ho neighbor. It's good to be back in America, though. Very nice to be back in America. And I did notice that I missed some snow while I was gone. We talked about that last week. I may not come back. Well, now I look at the forecast this week. It looks quite lovely here in Colorado. It looks good. I pulled up and realized that the people that are paid to clean my driveway actually cleaned my driveway. So all the snow was banked up on the sides of the driveway when the driver dropped me off from the Uber the other day. So I'm glad I didn't have to come home and shovel. I have people for that, my friends. I have people for that, because shoveling snow when you're in Africa is very, very, very hard. All right, let's get to some news. What do you say? Coming up on the program, good friend James Bradley going to be on the program. He's the guy that wrote the book that became the movie Flags of Our Father. He's been on the show before. Going to talk a little about some foreign policy and not Israel, Russia and Ukraine. And Trump says he's a little bit disappointed in Zelensky right now. We will go through that conversation here in just a moment. I have a question of the day I want to get to, but I keep finding it amazing. This morning I was up pretty early. And I turned on some radio as I was listening to the radio, and it wasn't in front of a television. And I heard them talking about Democrats being very upset about these drug boat bombings. And of course, they bombed one drug boat more than one time. And they're very bothered by this, the Democrats. But the funny thing is, I saw a survey, a poll that said 70% of Americans agree that this is a great way to handle the narco terrorists that are coming towards our shores with fentanyl and other kind of poisonous drugs. So let me ask you a question. Is this just another example of Democrats and not even just Democrats, people who have Trump derangement syndrome, that they're glomming onto these topics that you're like, dude, if you want to fight the guy, if you want to argue with the guy, if you want to disagree with the guy, there's a heck of a lot more things that you could probably make some headway on. But the drug boat bombings don't seem to be something that you're in lockstep with the majority of people. I mean, anytime I saw this survey that 70+% of Americans are not opposed to the drug boat bombings, I have to say, Democrats, why would you ever want to be on the wrong side of that issue when 70% plus of Americans can agree on anything? you have a topic that you just may want to say, I surrender that topic, and I'm not going to make a mountain out of that molehill because you're not going to be on the winning side of it. So give me your thoughts on the drug boat bombings. I even had a friend of mine who is rather apolitical, and occasionally I've heard a political comment, and he probably is generally a centrist. I've heard him say not necessarily negative, but disagreeing things about Trump. I've heard him make fun of Biden. So I'm not exactly sure where he falls politically, but he actually said, I hope they keep bombing those sons of guns and keep knocking them out of the water. And he actually happens to be in the drug and alcohol industry as far as rehabilitation, and he was talking about how he likes it. It's a great policy to kill them dead in the water. So give me your thoughts on this. I just find it amazing that after all these many weeks, the drug boat bombings and all the drumming up of hatred and anti-Trump rhetoric that happens, I see a poll that says over 70% of Americans think this is a good policy, and yet for some reason, the Democrats want to continue to engage on this topic. I think it's a strange strategy, and maybe I'm missing something as a part of the strategy. If you can help me with that, feel free to chime in on that as well. A story that I didn't give a lot of attention to because I didn't I didn't give a lot of attention to because I wasn't following a lot of the news. As you know, it's very rushed last week, trying to do the shows, oftentimes just sliding in with a sweaty hat right at the time the jingles were starting and ready to go. So I wasn't as well versed on topics as I probably wanted to have been. It caused me to rethink where I should do these shows in Africa on a regular basis because it was really a rush time. But that said, this Minnesota stuff, evidently we have a near miss in getting Timmy Walz as our vice president. And it looks like there's a lot of corruption that is happening in Minnesota, Ilhan Omar's district, and the Minnesota fraud that the Democrats have had into place. And Tim Walz was I guess, a proponent and an advocate in it. Let me give you the story. This is an opinion piece it's at Fox News by Jason Rantz. And it says Minnesota's $70 million fraud exposes how Democrats built a system that is designed to be robbed. Over 70 people have now been charged in Minnesota's Feeding Our Future fraud cases. Officials fear racism accusation more than protecting taxpayer money. Jason Rantz says for years, Democrats assured us that expending government programs was a moral heroism, that only thing standing between America and utopia was more money flowing through more community-based nonprofits embracing equity-centered missions. Then Minnesota happens, exposing the truth that the radical left will never admit. The system isn't broken. This is exactly how it was designed to work. Now, I want you to take yourself back up a couple of months ago, up to 35,000 feet, and you had Elon Musk showing up in Washington, D.C., and exposing a lot of waste, fraud, and abuse in the USAID area. And USAID wrapped itself in this cloak of heroism, saying, look what good we're doing around the globe, when it turns out a lot of those NGOs or nonprofits that USAID were funding silly programs, and some of them you have to argue was the money coming back into the back door through salaries, etc., and donations that didn't happen to Democrat Party. Well, now you're seeing it happen on a state level. Minnesota happened, and the radical left is never going to admit this. They say, well, the system's a little broken. No, this is how they designed it to work. Let me continue to read. Over 70 people connected with the Minnesota nonprofit Feeding Our Future face federal charges in the country's largest COVID pandemic fraud scandal. It was primarily Somalian Americans who allegedly stole funds that were meant for low-income children by submitting falsified invoices, fake meal counts, and fabricated rosters. The organizations billed the government for tens of millions of unserved meals using the stolen money for luxury cars, beachfront property, and homes. It's jaw-dropping, but the writer says it's not surprising. It happened because Democrats built a system practically engineered for abuse by the nonprofit industrial complex. This is the same complex of corruption that you found with USAID, that the nonprofit NGOs that Minnesota was targeting and or the USAID were targeting around the globe were actually just kind of front companies so that they could, people that ran those organizations could benefit. Here are 5 reasons, Jason writes here, that are it's so easy to commit. They built the program with no guardrails, the ideologically blinded Democrat leadership to obvious fraud, and it goes on with a whole bunch of information about why it is that this is how they designed it. It's an interesting story because it shows that if this is happening in Minnesota on this level, you can guarantee it's happening probably in Colorado. It's probably happening on some level in the state of California, and maybe all 50 states out there. We know it was happening at the national level, and yet finally we're seeing that it was happening in Minnesota, maybe taking the scales off people's eyes, that this isn't just Donald Trump and Elon Musk trying to doge and get rid of waste, fraud, and abuse. This is actually a problem of taxpayer dollars having been used for fraudulent purposes, and it's all because Democrats rope themselves in a cloak of heroism and say, we're feeding the children, it's all for the kids, and it actually wasn't for the kids. Ilhan Omar out there, she had an interview over the weekend, and Ilhan Omar said, well, if the FBI is just now finding this out, that's their fault. Shame. She blamed it on the FBI for not having the information that they needed to bust these fraudsters out there in Minnesota. Give me your thoughts, because this is the Minnesota fraud system is exposing the Democrats' fraud system. They wrap themselves up, and we've got to help the underdog. We got to fight the oligarchs. We've got to make sure everybody's got the health care or whatever it is they put that blanket statement on, and then they say, if you don't like it, you must hate the children. You don't like the children. You're a hater. You don't like the little ones. You want people to starve. You want grandma to fall off a cliff. And all of the time, they use that, and they use these negative accusations to keep you from coming after the waste, fraud, and abuse that they perpetrate with your taxpayer dollars. And they use that, and people oftentimes are afraid of being called names, get afraid of being called racist if you go after Somalian corruption. And so people just kind of leave it alone. Or if you're Timmy Waltz, the corrupt governor and buffoonish governor of Minnesota, you're afraid to critique it too much, even if in your heart you know you should. And I'm not sure he has a heart like that. But you need the votes, and your power and your perch of power remains more powerful than your principles, and that's what you have at the very. That's probably the nicest way you could paraphrase what's happening to some of these Democrats. Some of them are just blatantly corrupt. So give me your thoughts on the Minnesota fraud, and do you think this exposes a little bit more or helps some people digest this system of corruption that really has existed, and we've known it existed, and it goes back even to the USAID days and Elon Musk cutting some of that stuff with Doge, saying all of these programs about Mozambique circumcisions and Sesame Street in Iraq or whatever we were funding, those aren't really legitimate programs. But the Democrat program that is on display and was happening with full cooperation from a lot of Democrats in Minnesota is really the program that's not out of line. It's actually working perfectly, and that's how they designed it to work. Give me your thoughts on this. I wonder, again, I was overseas not following it very much in depth of it, but I'm looking at it and saying this ought to be one of those that wake people up and say, this is really happening in Minnesota? I thought this was something that they were just making up in the Trump administration, that there was waste, fraud, and abuse. And now we find out, kind of a smoking gun, that Timmy Waltz and the Democrats in Minnesota have been a part of this thing. And maybe this is a wake-up call for some people who automatically dismiss Doge as some kind of a theory, some kind of conspiracy or hatred or weaponization against liberal NGOs. No, it's the weaponization against fraud and waste and abuse that's happening out there. All right, I got a question for you. It's December. It's the Christmas season, and we're not afraid to say Merry Christmas around here. And we haven't decorated at my home yet. My son comes home from the university this week. And sometime in the next several days, maybe by the weekend, we'll put up some Christmas trees and Christmas decorations at my house. That's coming up. But let me ask you, do you have a December thing that you do? By saying December thing, there are certain things that people do in the fall that they normally maybe don't do all year. For instance, around October in America, everybody goes crazy on what we call that pumpkin spice thing, which I don't understand. I don't know if I've ever had a pumpkin spice latte, but I just know about October, the late September, everybody starts pushing pumpkin spice this, pumpkin spice that, right? Well, there's other things that happen in the month of December that you probably don't do the rest of the year. And what is your December thing? In December, you are most likely to do this no matter what. It doesn't matter if you're in Hawaii experiencing Christmas. It doesn't matter if you're in the North Pole experiencing with Santa himself. This is your official holiday thing that you do. And maybe you have some that are just your thing. For instance, as a child growing up, we always had a time up until the time I probably could drive. So up until the time I was probably in middle school, to 12, we would drive around town and we would go look at Christmas lights. And there were certain neighborhoods that had traffic jams and you knew where you could go to watch Christmas lights. And it was a deal. Maybe it was the mom driving us. Maybe it's a family. Maybe it was the neighbors. You went to go look at Christmas lights. And that was just a thing you did. We didn't drive around to those neighborhoods any other time of the year, but we drive around at Christmas time. 70% of Americans, they asked 1,000 Americans, how many of you have December things that you do? They're on your list. They have to happen in the month of December. And 70% say go look at lights. Now, when my son was real small, we would go look at lights. A couple of years ago, we had some play. We were going out of town and the cold, and we were delayed, and so we spent that evening driving around looking at lights as well. But 70% say this is something that's on their December list they are going to do. I'll give you another example. 48% say may not do this the rest of the year, but sometime in the month of December, I'm going to bake some cookies. It doesn't matter if they're from scratch. It doesn't matter if you're just buying the little dough from the store, the Pillsbury's. It doesn't matter. You're going to bake cookies. You may not bake cookies. You may not even eat cookies year round, but 48% of Americans say, yeah, this is my December thing. We are going to bake cookies. Some people, 43% say I don't do much of it during the year, but 43% of Americans say my December thing is to donate to charity. So let me ask you, do you have a December thing? I see Jeff has just put up eggnog. Eggnog is probably a good one for a lot of folks because do you ever remember drinking eggnog in March or April or May? Eggnog is a December thing, and that's just something that's going to happen. So let us know what your December thing is, especially if maybe it's something that is kind of off the beaten path and maybe nobody else does this. For instance, 37% of Americans say they wear holiday pajamas. They're going to wear the holiday pajamas. They're going to wear those around. And now what they're not telling of the 37%, how many people usually don't wear anything and now they're going to put on the holiday version. 37% say the holiday season is not complete unless they attend a religious service. They've got to go to religious service. And you always know there's certain people that only show up at church at Easter and Christmas. And so 37% say, yeah, it's just part of the tradition. It's not Christmas unless we go there. I know some people growing up in the Dallas area, it's been many years since I lived there, their holiday tradition was going to the Nutcracker. I think it was the ballet or something. I remember my mom dragged us along to see it one year around Christmas time, the Nutcracker. We saw that. But some people, that's a big deal. They got to go see it. Some people, their Christmas deal is a Secret Santa contest. Maybe it's with people at work. Maybe it's people in your neighborhood, but the Secret Santa program, 23% of Americans say their December thing is the Secret Santa. They've got to do the Secret Santa thing. That's just part of their thing. 17% say their December thing, it makes the holidays official if they build a gingerbread house. So let me hear what your December thing is. I would love to have a conversation about that. What is your December thing that you like to do? Obviously, decorating a house with Christmas decorations is probably a thing, and we'll talk about the patterns that you get in to do that. But all of us probably have a December thing, and I'd like to hear what yours is. One of my December things is complaining about cold weather and looking for somewhere warm to go. Fortunately, I just came back from warm weather, and in the future, coming weeks, I'll try to find somewhere else warm to go. But let us know what your December thing is. What is the thing that you love to do in December, and you just know it's part of that holiday tradition? Some people, I remember growing up, one of our things that was December, we didn't do a lot of it outside of December, but you got around December, and we decided to we would play board games, and cousins would get together, and that's the one time you'd maybe get an epic game of Monopoly going on. Growing up, the kids in the neighborhood didn't play a lot of board games. We were outside running around, but December, around the holidays, the board games came out, and for some reason, we had a great time with board games, and we had checkers, and I remember I don't know if that's what it's called, Chinese checkers. My grandma had a game, which I don't know if that's politically correct, like the China virus. We had the China checkers. We played those. I mean, just board games came out. That was a December thing, and that was just part of the holiday tradition. So let us know what your December thing is. Somebody says Mannheim Steamroller. If you see them live, listening to Mannheim Steamroller Christmas, but seeing them live is fantastic. Mariah Carey and music. I was on flipping through the radio, got back from obviously Africa, and I was in the car Saturday or Sunday. All my days run together. Today's Monday. So anyway, since I got back, and I went to one of my favorite stations, kind of the music stations that I listen to. One of them, I have 7 presets on music on the radio, and they were playing all Christmas music, and I unprogrammed it. I don't want to hear all Christmas music. About the week before Christmas, 2 or 3 days, I'm ready to go with the Christmas music. It's fine. But I can't imagine driving around town right now listening to Christmas music the whole time. And so I deprogrammed. That was button, far to the left is button number 1 or 2. And I said, screw it, I'm not going to listen to Christmas music. But maybe you do. Maybe you're one of those people that come December the 1st or the day after Thanksgiving, you're looking for the Christmas rotation. Maybe that's your December thing. I can guarantee you that's not my thing. So everybody, let us know what your December thing is. We would love to have you chime in on this whole thing. All right, anybody watch football yesterday? The Buffalo Bills made a big comeback on Joe Burrow. Joe Burrow, though, looked great. He'd been out for the season. Those are my 2 favorite NFL quarterbacks yesterday, Joe Burrow and Josh Allen for the Bills and Burrows for the Bengals. And so I wanted both of them to win. I like both of them. My 2 favorite NFL quarterbacks are right there. And it was a winner, but the Bills came back and beat Joe Burrow. That was fantastic. Last night, the Kansas City Chiefs lost. The Chiefs lost, and that probably obliterated their playoffs hopes. So they have gone from glory to nothing this year. They've gone from appearing in the Super Bowl to really. And it's really Taylor Swift. I mean, if you think of the fall of the Chiefs, it's the distraction of Taylor Swift. All of a sudden, the story wasn't about their football acumen. It wasn't about whether brother Kelsey could catch a ball or how in sync he was with Patrick Mahomes. It was about whether he and Taylor were going to get married. And remember the marriage, the engagement happened. They announced it right about the time the season was starting. And so I blame Taylor Swift. If you're a Kansas City Chiefs fan, it's Tay-Tay's fault. And Mr. Kelsey is an undisciplined athlete, and he should have been ashamed of himself for allowing the esteemed Taylor to distract him. But anybody else believe that? I think it is absolutely true that he was distracted there. That being said, I didn't watch the game. I did not watch the game. On the flight home, I have resisted subscribing to Paramount Plus because I subscribed to too many other networks. I cut the cords long ago, and now I find myself subscribing to more stuff than cable ever cost me, which is ridiculous. And so producer Chad's been telling me I got to get Paramount Plus so I can catch up on Landman and some of the Taylor Sheridan stuff that's out there. And so on the plane coming back, United Airlines had on their television selection, they had 1923. And I started 1923, and I was intrigued by it, which is a precursor to Yellowstone. And I started watching 1923 last night at home. I watched it on the plane and picked up on it last night with a trial subscription to Paramount Plus, and I watched that. And then I woke up this morning and realized the Kansas City Chiefs lost, and I said, what's happening to me? I didn't watch Sunday Night Football. I love Sunday Night Football. I love it. It's a compensation I have on a Sunday night that it got dark so early. It's too cold to do what I like to do outside. And so I watched Sunday Night Football, and somehow I missed it. I missed Sunday Night Football. And then I wake up this morning and realize I didn't just miss Sunday Night Football. Ladies and gentlemen, I missed 60 Minutes, which I never watch, but I might have been curious to see what Marjorie Taylor Greene said on 60 Minutes. Let me ask any of you, did anybody watch 60 Minutes last night? I would love you to report to us and let us know what you saw there. I'm reading an account on Fox News. Representative Marjorie Taylor Greene of Georgia briefly sparred with 60 Minutes host Leslie Stahl over what she claimed was accusatory behavior by the journalist. Marjorie Taylor Greene gave her first sit-down interview with Stahl, announcing her resignation from Congress last month. During the segment, Stahl and Greene spoke about the Georgia's lawmakers' apology for taking part in toxic politics. She told CNN, I would like to say humbly, I'm sorry for taking part in the toxic politics. It's very bad for our country, etc. Well, evidently, Leslie Stahl said, but you contributed to that. You were just out pounding insult and insulting people. And Greene pushed back on Leslie Stahl, the journalist that's so-called nonpartisan, said, you're accusatory just like you did then. I know you're accusing me, but I'm smiling. You're accusing me, but we don't have to accuse one another. So the two continue to go back and forth with Green repeatedly insisting, Leslie Stahl, you're saying I was accusatory to other people. You're accusing me of being accusatory to other people. Leslie Stahl is a buffoon of a reporter, and Leslie Stahl should never be considered to be a real contributor to fair journalism in America. But the two went back and forth on 60 Minutes. I'm reading the account, and Leslie Stahl said, I don't insult people. And Marjorie Taylor Greene says, yeah, you just do it in the way you question, and you're accusing me right now. You don't insult people, but you ask questions that are insulting, and it's the tone of your voice I don't like. So anyway, if you watched it last night, I'd love to hear it. I'll probably go back and try to find it today. If anybody watched the Leslie Stahl interview with Marjorie Taylor Greene, feel free to let me know how that went, because that's an interesting exchange. But MTG was on the 60 Minutes. MTG, Marjorie Taylor Greene, doing an interview with Leslie Stahl, and they got a little persnickety with each other and accused each other of accusing each other of accusing each other of accusing each other. And that's the only part of the interview I know about. But I was watching 1923. I just started season 2 of it. I guess it's 2 seasons. I thought I only had 1 episode to go, and then I realized there's 2 seasons. So don't tell me what happens. It's a pretty good story. It's the backstory or the precursor to Yellowstone, and it's building up for that. So I'm watching that. I did watch the other precursor. It was before 1872, 18. There was another one. I watched that one on a plane as well. So these airplane rides that I take to Africa several times a year oftentimes get me caught up on some of these shows, and I don't have to subscribe to a lot of these things, but I do have a trial to the Paramount Plus. But I'm looking at it, man, there's just way too much. There's way too many subscriptions in my life, and I cut the cord long ago, and now I've got the Netflix, I've got the Prime, I've got I think we got the Hulu, I think we got the food. I don't know what, we've got too many. And sometimes my son will message me and say, hey, message me from college, what's our password to this one? I'm like, do we still have that one? I didn't even know we had that one. So that's going to be one of the things that I do, is I'm going to go through and this week and figure out how many of these darn subscriptions I have and how can I compact them, because I don't like it. All right, good to have all of you here. Don't forget your December thing is our question of the day. What is your December thing? Something that you do that it makes December. Kevin says Trans-Siberian Orchestra and driving around looking at Christmas lights. Yeah, the Christmas lights thing, we got back into it a year or so ago as my son got older. Maybe we'll do it this year because I don't think we have any Christmas travel on the docket yet. We're working on a couple of things. But the Trans-Siberian Orchestra, I saw them in concert several years ago. I've never seen Mannheim Steamroller. I've never been to a Mannheim Steamroller show, but the TSO, I have been there. It was loud, but it was really good. I still prefer driving the car listening to it rather than maybe sitting there listening to it, but it was a fun show. All right, good to have all of you here. Let us know what your December thing is, and just something that you want to do and have to do in December so that you know it's the Christmas and holiday season. That's your question of the day here on the show. Also, don't forget, thousands of earballs will hear this show later in the day and throughout the course of the day. A lot of you watch it live on various and sundry streams. We're on like 6 or 7 platforms right now, various feeds on each of those. And we're also then, as soon as the show's over, the audio version goes up on the podcast platform, Apple Podcasts, iHeart, Spotify, etc. So whenever you're listening and or hearing the show, we always appreciate you participating. And if you are listening on the podcast version later in the day, hello from the morning and hello in the future. We hope you're doing well up there. And also, if you'd like to comment, always feel free to email us, info@jimmylakey.com, info@jimmylakey.com. All right, glad to have all of you here. Let us know your December thing on all the platforms. Just post your messages, and it would be fantastic to hear from you. Indeed, it shall. All right, let me welcome into the program our first guest of the day. If I got to get all the right buttons here, James Bradley has been with us before, an esteemed author who you may first have known him from writing a book called Flags of Our Fathers, which became a big-time movie that many of you saw. And I want to welcome him to the show. His latest book is called Precious Freedom, a novel. New York Times bestselling author of Flags of Our Fathers, and now the latest book, Precious Freedom. James Bradley is in the studio, green room, and we welcome him back to the program. James, welcome back in, sir.
Jimmy, thank you for having me.
Glad to have you here. I want to get back to remind people about the book. It'd be a great gift idea for people over the over the holiday season. That's something they could do. But I want to bring in, get a little bit talk. You study the Vietnam War, you study the phenomena war that happened then. You talk about that in the book. We're watching an ongoing quagmire of a war. Russia versus Ukraine. Russia says they want peace. Here's the peace deal. Ukraine says they want peace. No one will agree on peace. And while Russia's talking about peace on earth, goodwill towards men, I'm reading that they're just barraging them with drones and missile attacks. So give me your take in comparison to great conflicts like Vietnam in our generation or the last couple of generations. What are we watching in Russia? Is this one of those wars that's just going to keep going and going?
Well, Ho Chi Minh said it all. It depends on America, that if America wants to fight, we'll fight for 20 years. And if they want to be friends, we'll have tea tomorrow. So, Obama did the coup in Ukraine in 2014, and NATO pushed right up to Russia. Russia said for many years, no. And so now it's the same game. If you look at my book, Precious Freedom, Lyndon Johnson was giving money to Lockheed and military contractors to send airplanes and missiles and bombs to Vietnam. And he said, I'm searching for peace. I'm looking for peace. And he flew out to Guam and Hawaii. I'm looking for peace. And it's the same with Trump. What are we up to? $300 billion of equipment in Ukraine, and that's called American peace. We don't give aid. When we say we're giving aid to Israel, Ukraine, or these different countries, that's not what we're doing. The money doesn't go to Ukraine. Some of it does, but the money goes across the street to Lockheed or to Palantir or to Raytheon. So, Johnson never said, I'm a warmonger and I'm fighting in Vietnam. He always said we're looking for peace as he upped the military budget, just like Trump is selling more and more arms, saying that we're looking for peace. He could have peace tomorrow, just shut off the arms sales.
It's fascinating you bring up going back to Johnson, and it was Dwight Eisenhower, his farewell address, where he said, you've got to beware of the military-industrial complex. No one has really ever heeded those comments, have they? I mean, we haven't started a war under Trump, but you're right. With the approval of Congress, we keep sending millions and millions or billions of dollars to Ukraine, but we're not sending that, hopefully, to Zelensky. That's going to the contractors, and we're buying weapons or giving that money to Europe, who then is laundering it and buying it from our American contractors. That military-industrial complex is still a real thing, isn't it?
Well, and I'm not really criticizing. I'm just saying that we have a system. We won World War II. And if you look in my third book, fourth book, China Mirage, Dean Acheson, Secretary of State under Truman, saw the world economy wobbling, that we weren't getting back on our feet. Europe and Asia wasn't clicking after World War II. And he decided on a military Keynesianism. In other words, a military stimulus. He said, look at it, World War II, our economy did fine. So we wrote something called NSA 162. And in there, and it was secret for over 30 years, in there it said, we are going to have pockets of allies all over the world, and we're going to have these and do military sales. And we're going to create this military industrial complex, and it's going to bring the economy of America back. And it did. And this is what Eisenhower was warning about, but he couldn't talk about it because it was top secret. This NSA document that now was finally, decommissioned, or whatever you say. So Eisenhower was warning the public, you got to get educated or else this military industrial complex. And then the next president said, we're not going to fight in Vietnam. Kennedy said, after I get elected in 1964, I'm pulling out. Well, they put a bullet right in his head here. And the next day, not the next week, but the next day after they killed Kennedy, Johnson said, I'm not going to be the president that loses in Southeast Asia. I'm going to pedal to the metal and give the military everything they want.
Wow. The voice of James Bradley. We'll talk about his latest book here in just a moment. If you're listening on the audio portion of the show, of course, you don't see the name on the screen. Thousands of earballs will hear this show. And James Bradley, author of a new book called Precious Freedom, a novel. And he's also the New York Times #1 best-selling author of Flags of Our Fathers, Fly Boys, The Imperial Cruise, and The China Mirage. And he actually lived in Vietnam for 10 years to research his fifth book. We'll talk about Precious Freedom, a novel of the Vietnam War. You talk about, we talk about peace, and evidently there's a peace deal that's been floated out there. Over the weekend, President Trump said he's, quote, a little disappointed that Zelensky says he has not read the peace deal yet. Give me your take on this thing. We've had a couple of deals and come to the table, and Zelensky says, I'm giving up too much. Putin's not necessarily been an honest broker, even though he flew to Alaska to meet with President Trump to try to work out some kind of a deal. The latest take from James Bradley on the peace deal that's on the table, and Zelensky says, I haven't read it yet, and Trump says, I'm a little bit disappointed. Are you a little bit surprised?
No. There's Zelensky, there's no Ukraine. The Ukrainian army is enfeebled. They are taking teenagers off the streets and giving them 1 week of training and sending them out to the front line. Look, Russia could have taken Ukraine on the first day of the war. Russia doesn't want to take Ukraine. Russia's not threatening Europe. Russia wanted to stop the Ukrainian attack of the traditionally Russian portions of Ukraine. And that's why they called it a limited military situation. So the Russian army is where it is. It could take all of Ukraine. It could destroy Europe in a second if it wanted. You know, Russia has these hypersonic weapons that are not nuclear, but they have nuclear effect, but they don't have radiation. So Putin is just, you know, the Russian army is there. The rest of the world has to realize it, and then we'll have peace. But peace, there's no money in peace. So we're continuing to send the armaments and playing this game. You know, in the Vietnam situation, we didn't win one day of that war. That every day, at the end of the day, our Marines and soldiers had to retreat, dig a hole, go into the ground, put barbed wire around, and the Vietnamese controlled the territory at night. U.S. Commandant David Shoup, Marine Commandant David Shoup, he took his uniform off and went cross country and said, the Vietnamese control Vietnam. Ho Chi Minh is their George Washington. There's no way we can win this war. But we weren't allowed to see these words when you and I were kids. But there's a tremendous, Americans are looking at the war, Ukraine, Afghanistan, Venezuela. No. You got to look at the White House and who funds it. And then look at the money going across the street to Palantir and that's the war that we should be looking at. It's not about Ukraine, Venezuela, Israel, and Afghanistan.
That's fascinating, and it's what a great perspective. James Bradley, my guest, author of a book called Precious Freedom. James, I guess somebody may be listening going, well, Europe has a real right to be afraid that they don't want Russia to take territory from Ukraine. What's wrong with that argument? People say they should have left Ukraine alone, and you say that they're just wanting parts that were traditionally Russia to begin with. Some people, maybe uneducated, seem to be very afraid that Russia and Putin are wanting and have bigger dreams of taking more territory. Your thoughts?
I would say those people are educated. They are propagandized. The easiest people to propagandize are the highly educated. If you're a top lawyer or professor or whatever, you're propagandized. And Putin has been the devil forever in American media. Again, David Shoup, Commandant of the United States, he said, we've made the word communist, we propagandized it so much, we made it into bad. Communist forces. We don't say capitalist forces under George Washington, the capitalist troops at Valley Forge. People don't fight for communism and these different things. Putin is fighting for Russian people. If you look at the map, it's all over, folks. Nobody's going to move the Russian army. Hitler tried it. Napoleon tried it. Putin didn't make the first move. It was NATO, and NATO is the United States. Trump could turn off the war like this. Boop, no more arms.
Wow. The name of the book is called Precious Freedom. I want you to give the details of that because a lot of the insight you're bringing to this war and thoughts on the war of Ukraine and Russia and the peace that's there or not there have to do with your studying of the Vietnam era and the Vietnam war that happened here in American history. Talk about the book and some of the most surprising things you learned studying that era of history that now bring us to today.
What I learned is that when I grew up in the Vietnam era as a little teenager, I learned there was a in South Vietnam, North, South, communist bad, democratic South. Then I went to Vietnam and the Vietnamese said, you guys made that up. We were one Vietnam. The French called us Indo-Chinese. We weren't Indo-Chinese. Then the Americans called us South Vietnamese. So they had this thing. So we're doing the same thing. You know, it's Russia versus Ukraine. It's bad versus good. It's Taiwan versus China. No, there's one Vietnam, there's one China, and there's one Russia, traditionally, if you look over centuries. But these are very profitable wars. And again, I say to Americans, like you look at Afghanistan and you study, what are we doing? Why did we lose? We didn't lose. These wars are not tragedies, they're profit centers.
Yeah, that's true. Why would our politicians keep sending men and women to die for 20 years in Afghanistan and make America think that we're fighting for good? No, we were keeping a lot of people getting rich and some pocketbook money coming into a lot of big companies, and those people fund political campaigns and make donations. So, James Bradley, folks should pick up a copy of this book called Precious Freedom. Talk about the title of the book, Precious Freedom. Because when I heard the book was called Precious Freedom, it didn't dawn on me that was about Vietnam. For some reason, I thought it was something about America. Keep your fry. The title just is it caught my attention. I want you to explain it.
You know, it's very interesting. At the end, all Americans will say about Vietnam, well, in the end, we pulled out because it wasn't moral. We didn't have a moral case. The kids out in the streets were demonstrating against it. The mothers didn't want their sons to go die in Vietnam. And Ho Chi Minh realized this. And in the beginning, he just said, there's nothing more precious than freedom. And in my interviews of interviewing Vietnamese veterans, and Jimmy, I'll tell you, I'm shocked. I'm the only American author who's ever gone to Vietnam and asked the winners how they won. That's what this book is. But I went to all these Vietnamese veterans, and they said, Mr. Bradley, we suffered, but Ho Chi Minh said there's nothing more precious than freedom. So in other words, there's got to be a moral rightness. Right now, 70% of the public doesn't want us to invade Venezuela. We're not going to win a war in Venezuela if you don't have the American moral support. Ho Chi Minh knew that. The book is called Precious Freedom.
If you actually talk about the research, the depth, you're talking about interviewing the winners, it wasn't just a quick flight, I got to be home by Friday. You actually embedded yourself into the Vietnam culture for a period of time.
Jimmy, I moved to Vietnam for 3 years. I thought, 3 years, I'm an author, I know how to write books, I'll come back with a book. It took me over 10 years. And the reason is because once I was talking to the Vietnamese, I had to unwind all the propaganda that Walter Cronkite and Ken Burns and the New York Times had stuffed into my head. I said, my brother went to fight in Vietnam when I was 13. So I was watching everything about Vietnam and studying it. And what I was watching was not true. And Walter Cronkite didn't tell us the truth. I go to Vietnam, and the Vietnamese, they had a plan. Their plan was something called People's War. If you look at the 7,000 pages of the Pentagon Papers, no American president ever had a meeting about People's War. I went to Vietnam. They were printing their strategy up and giving it out to Buffalo boys and kids. All the Vietnamese kids could see the strategy, how they were going to beat America, and America never looked at the strategy that eventually beat them.
Wow. Precious Freedom is the name of the book. James Bradley is the author. James, a holiday gift idea. Somebody wants to escape kind of the reality of their in-laws coming to town. They could disappear into a book somewhere. Where's the book available? And I'm sure an audio book of this is fantastic as well, I'm guessing.
Yeah, the audio is really great. It's on Kindle. It's a beautiful hardcover. Look at that cover. I mean, I didn't design it, but it's a gorgeous cover. It's on Amazon.com, of course, BarnesandNoble.com. If you want to talk to me, go to JamesBradley.com. Very difficult, JamesBradley.com. Send me an email. I'll respond. You can see my other interview with Jimmy and see which hat he wears when.
Yeah, exactly. I'm there. Usually the white hat. I try to do the white hat on Mondays, especially because I like to be the good guy. Is this a book that you think that could possibly, because students today, if they're learning anything about Vietnam, which I'm not sure they're taught much in history anyway anymore, but is this something that could maybe the true narrative get out there, and in future generations that you're going to change the context and people will finally learn the truth about Vietnam? Is this going to change the way we teach it?
I think so, because I put it together as a novel so you could follow the characters. Half of the book is about Americans who go to Vietnam, mothers and fathers who send their kids, and they learn about what is really going on and the truth. Again, I'm the only American author who ever went to Vietnam and said, let's see, who won, who lost? Oh, the Vietnamese won. And I asked them, how did they win? All the other books about Vietnam are about how we lost. We could have won if only the media, if only the press. Oh, we could have won if only. Well, we lost. And I asked the winners, how did you win? And it's in this book, Precious Freedom. They had a plan.
Well, it's written as a novel just so you can follow the characters, but it is a perspective that you did not learn in school. And if you grew up in that era, you did not learn from Walter Cronkite. Precious Freedom, James Bradley. James, I appreciate you hopping on the program again. And maybe I'll get you a hat, and next time you can wear a hat and we'll be twins or something.
That's my goal. Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas, James. Appreciate it. James Bradley, the name of the book is called Precious Freedom, available anywhere fine books are sold, and the audio book, and again, could be a great holiday read. It's to catch up on. It really is interesting. I've just listening to James talk and the different perspectives that he brings, and a lot of us have been propagandized, my friends, about so many eras and parts of American history, and this is why I always say question everything, because if you're watching it on the evening news, there's probably a reason you're watching it, and when they're reporting on something, I also have to I have to wonder what it is they're wanting me to think and what is they're not reporting on. Jeff, I'll get to that question with him next, and that's a great question. What's his opinion on those who dodged the draft? His brother went over and fought, and that's a great question, Jeff. Next time we have James on, I'll try to remember to ask him that question. But again, the name of his book is called Precious Freedom. Ladies and gentlemen, I just came back from Africa. Do I look jet lag? I'm not. There's a little sleep schedule off, but I'm powering through it, and it'll be good. I've done this trip enough. I just know how to fight it. And I wouldn't say I'm jet lagged. You just avoid the naps and get back on your proper schedule as quickly as possible. And I think we'll be good. It was fantastic. If you have not made your donation, or maybe you made a donation and you want to make another end of the year donation, I'd love to have you consider River's Promise. I mentioned the December things that people like to do. And one of those things to do is some people give to charity once a year, and that's the Christmas season. Would you remember the work of River's Promise? I appreciate it. When you do that, you saw some of the video on the ground. You've seen our website. You hear me talk about it. You kind of get the feel for what we do, even the videos I shared and photos. That what we do is so important, and literally if we didn't do what we do, these kids would not be in school, these children we serve would not be eating, and we could use your help. Our food bill is outrageous right now, and we've got over 200 kids that we daily feed 2 meals a day, and any help that you can give on the meals is wonderful. Now, part of that's included in sponsorship, but not every kid who attends our school has a sponsor yet. So when you sponsor a child, you're helping cover some food bill. But if you'd like to just help with the food bill in general, it's you ready for this? It's $1 a day. And you can do that over the course of a month, and that's $30 a month, and you're feeding a kid 2 meals a day. If you'd like to sponsor a kid, maybe you want to sponsor a child for Christmas for your family. Hey, this is our gift. We're going to sponsor this child. Go to the website, click sponsorship, and it's riverspromise.org. You can pick an individual child, and that's $65 a month, or you can just pay the food bill for a month and maybe set it up as a Christmas program. I had one year that I had a college student asked me to pick a child that was in need, and they presented that to their parents and said, I'm sponsoring this child all year on your behalf. And now that we're out of the house, this little kid will send you letters. And the kid sent them letters, and that sponsorship was beautiful because the kid paid for it for his parents. So riverspromise.org, riverspromise.org, riverspromise.com. Either way works, and we'd love to hear from you in this Christmas season. Year in giving underway. Make sure you get, by the way, we'll get the mailing address out as well. Got back from Africa and saw several of you had actually sent checks in the mail, not trusting the old credit card apps. I appreciate that as well. We'll give that address here in just a bit, or go to riverspromise.com, riverspromise.org, and you will see the address there. You can mail a check. That is perfectly fine. All right, ladies and gentlemen, I want to welcome to the program. We missed each other last week, so we're going to have her on a couple of times this week. It's Sherry Cree, one of the great sponsors of our show. You have her website, homeswithsherry.com. Good morning, Sherry. How are you?
Good morning. Welcome back, Jimmy.
Thank you. I was going to ask you this week when I was in Africa, so I'm going to ask you. You went to Africa. We don't have to spend a lot of time on it, but you saw what we do with Rivers Promise, and I'd just like you to kind of tell everybody that we really do have a school there. There really are children, and you and your husband have been a great part of what we're doing over there, and just let you kind of have a take of tell everybody about Rivers Promise and what we do in Africa, and then we'll talk about real estate.
Yes, and then I had the honor of attending a ribbon cutting of the brand new first school building for Rivers Promise Legacy Christian Academy, and then that was eye-opening, and I really love the culture of Rwanda. People are very warm and clean, and just a sweet people, and then but also I witnessed firsthand the scars of the genocide and extreme poverty. So it's a very contrasting experience, and definitely I admire you for leading that efforts to bring education to children in that extreme poverty.
Yeah, it's a beautiful culture. You watch the scars of the genocide and say, how are these people so happy and smiling? They've been through a lot, and education, we say, is the ladder that gets people out of the pit of extreme poverty. And I appreciate you going over there with us, and maybe in the future you'll go back and visit again, and we'll have another ribbon cutting in the future. All right, Sherry, it's Christmas season. People are buying gifts and hanging lights up, and some people are thinking, okay, 2026, next year, that's going to be the time. Maybe I'm going to purchase my first home. Maybe I'm going to make a real estate transaction. Let's talk about first-time home buyers. It's been a market that's been tough for first-time home buyers to get into in Colorado. People are, on average, buying their first home later in life, which I don't think is a good thing. What advice do you give for those people that want to be a first-time home buyer? Where do we start?
Well, first of all, just the reason I want to talk about first-time home buying today is the National Association of Realtors, our trade association, annually analyze the buyer profile, seller profile, what's going on in the market. And there's one data point that they track is the median age of first-time home buyers. And then for 25, it hit the record high reached that 40 years old. 40. That median age of first-time home buyers. So that tells you how it is getting more and more difficult for younger generation to get into the first-time home purchase. So that was really in 24, it was 35, 36, somewhere around there. And in the 80s, it was in the 20s, upper 20s. So that tells you that it is getting so hard for younger generation to get into homeownership.
What's happened? I mean, interest rates have been very low for the last decade, and back in the 70s they were quite high, and yet people were still able to buy a home. What is it that's affected? What's making it more difficult? It seems like interest rates starting to come back down. This should be easier again, but the numbers still keep going up.
Right. And how old were you when you bought your first home?
I was in my 30s. I don't remember
30?
exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. And then I was, I believe, 32.
I
But
was
I
about that age.
recently pulled a poll with my people that how old were you when you bought your first home? And quite a few, contact, like my friends of my age saying when they bought a first home, the rate was 16%, rate was 18%. And then that tells you, it was possible then. And then there's always thing called the refinancing. If the rate comes down, you can refinancing to lower rate. But why is the 18% interest rate possible for first-time home buyer to buy a house? Because the home prices were not like today. The $500,000 home today was $100,000 at the time. So, I think the rate of real estate price appreciating or getting expensive, combined with rate not being favorable in the past 5 years or 4 years, that's really making things hard for, especially in 23, 24, for the first time home buyers. It's just it's exceeding the increase of your income.
The voice of Sherry Cree, if you're listening later in the program on the podcast version, her website is homeswithsherry.com, homeswithsherry.com. Sherry, if you have somebody, let's say, contact you and say, my New Year's resolution is to buy my first home. Maybe they're newlywed, maybe it's a single person, and that's their object for the next 2026. What would that conversation be like? What would you advise them to do? Do they need to make sure have X number of dollars in savings? Are there probably a lot of plans out there for first-time home buyers? If somebody called you up and said, 2026, Sherry, that's our time. We're going to buy a home for the first time. What do you tell them?
Well, first point is to start talking about it and understanding your finances and in your life. It's not just the finances, you have your life plan of where you want to be, how soon you want to be. And then I always say, building generational wealth, that's, what the real estate is best suited for. But it all starts from homeownership. And then children of the parents who were renters, they never learn, how to get there. So, I'm going to be putting out kind of like a campaign, because this is the end of the year. I will offer 30-minute over Zoom connection to discuss their, dreams and plans and roadmaps to get there. So it all starts from understanding the process of home buying, and then understanding your own finances, and then see where it fits. But you have to want to, get into home ownership. That's the first step. If you're not interested, and that's your life. So, yeah.
There were, I know years ago, there was controversy. People say, well, you need to put so much money down, X number of percentage down, because that showed that the banks required that. Then there were, for a while, banks that were, they could approve you with no money down. Is there a rule of thumb? If somebody says, I haven't saved enough money, I shouldn't call Sherry, or you say, no, call anyway? I mean, is there a certain dollar amount people need to have in a bank account? Or if they're haven't saved much at all for that down payment, is it still worth the conversation?
Yes, when I say roadmap, that starts from, if you have bad credit, how you're going to improve your credit, or if you don't have any down payment, how are you going to save up budgeting your expenses and your finances? How are you going to build your down payment? But the rule of thumb is the conventional loan. You typically need 5% down, but there are programs that allowed you to put lower money down. For FHA loan, it starts from 3.5% down. But, here's the thing, I do special services, incentives for veterans and the military families. But you can use VA loan to purchase, and a VA loan, the beauty is zero money down. So not all veterans or military members utilize VA loan, but listen to this. Our first home, Roger and I bought first home in 99. And then we wanted to use VA loan. And our realtor said, no, you don't want to use VA loan because that just really, cumbersome. And then there was nothing cumbersome, but, we didn't have a really good real estate professional supporting us, and we used the VA loan anyway. But, just it all starts from getting the right professionals to support. And then VA loan is a great program. It's a benefit that you earn by serving the country. So definitely, if you're veterans or military families, look into the benefit they have.
All right, homeswithsherry.com. I know everybody's getting busy for the holidays and thinking of gingerbread houses and Christmas trees, but maybe you've got some real estate goals in 2026, and why don't you take some time with Sherry and have a strategy session. If you're a first-time home buyer, maybe your kids are coming home and they've been talking about buying a house, or you visit with them, maybe just package up a little bow and a gift and say, hey, I've got you a 30-minute strategy session with Sherry. She's going to give me a roadmap. Give it as a Christmas gift, and your kids will thank you for it. So
most of my first-time home buyers, they're referral from their parents, aunts, uncles. It just basically generationally, that's where my connections are. But most of the first-time buyers, that they are referred or suggested by a family member saying, hey, you should look into that. Or you're paying $3,000 rent in a downtown condo. That's fine if you're happy with it, but why don't you look into, buying a house? And here's the, resource for you.
Yeah. Are you expecting, we'll talk about this maybe later in the week as well, but obviously 2025 is wrapping up. Are you seeing anything that you're starting to pay attention to in the real estate market, let's say right in Colorado for 2026? Are you expecting a boom or a bust or a correction? Anything on the radar screen for Sherry Cree?
Yeah, well, I don't know boom or bust, but a lot of the home sellers didn't sell in summer, fall seasons, pull the listing off market. So those people are going to have to be strategizing right now. What's the good timing to relist or put it back on the market? And as I always say, it's better to be early spring than late spring. That's sooner the better. But you have your trusted real estate professional that it's okay. You pulled the property, didn't sell off the market, but you have to have a plan now, timing. What are you going to improve the house for to have a successful sale?
Yeah. Jeff asked this question. This may be something we come back and talk about. What's about 50-year loans? Are those still in the works? Have you heard much about the 50-year loan?
Yes, it's proposed by Trump administration, and it's a big talk. It certainly spread your payment over 50 years. That makes your debt income ratio more favorable to qualify. So it certainly will help the entry point of buying, that makes homes more attainable. So that generally people are supporting it because like we said, the median age is 40 now for the first-time home buyers. The entry point is so difficult. So it's generally supported. But again, if it's right for you, that's based on your consultation and your assessment of your picture.
And a lot of folks want to wait until interest rates come way down, but meanwhile, the prices are going up, and people often forget that whether you're in a 30-year, 15-year, 50-year, you can always refinance. Sometimes it's the prices of homes are going to continue to, they've elevated throughout the year, and sometimes getting that home process started, and you can consider a refi later and rearranging that. Sherry Cree, you're right. There's a lot of different scenarios. Everybody's got to have their comfort level, and you can kind of give them a roadmap based on their dreams and aspirations and have that consultation with Sherry. First-time home buyers, especially if you're a family, you got some kids or grandkids wanting to do a first-time consultation. She's offering that, a strategy session with first-time home buyers. Homeswithsherry.com. Go to the website, homeswithsherry.com, homeswithsherry.com. Sherry, we'll check in again this week because people's got to start planning for next year. So we'll do again this week. Homeswithsherry.com. Appreciate her hopping on the program. Homeswithsherry.com. Get that scheduled. That strategery session. You got to have some strategery. It is amazing how much you got to have strategery. I did not know Sherry when I bought my first home, and I didn't think I was qualified to buy it. I didn't even know. I figured I was a renter, as the bachelor renter, and then ended up not being the bachelor, and then we bought it. I just didn't even know. It was just not on my radar screen because my parents pretty much stayed in the same house my entire life, so never watched them deal with real estate or transactions. I didn't know much about it, and learned a lot because you got to have that right person in your corner, and Sherry's that person. Homeswithsherry.com. All right, I want to remind you once again that if you could make a donation to Rivers Promise, we'd greatly appreciate it. If you haven't subscribed to our newsletter as well, I haven't told this story publicly. I'm going to put it in the newsletter. It's going to be a brief update. Maybe I'll tell it on the program later in the week. But there's going to be a newsletter hitting maybe tomorrow, I think, if we have it ready. It's going to be a brief story, and it's called I Prayed for a Cow. That's going to be the topic of conversation. I prayed for a cow. That's going to be the... I'll give you the details of it. Go subscribe at riverspromise.org, riverspromise.com. Go subscribe, and we would love to have you participate in Rivers Promise. Make a donation today. For all of you who have made that donation, thank you. If you could make another year-end donation, we'd appreciate it. Be honest, we're a little short for November. We're a little short for December in those donations and our feeding bill and our feeding program. So that would really help us out if you can make a donation. $30 feeds a child for 2 meals a day. Somebody said, why aren't you pushing the shoes? Well, I need to push the shoes for Christmas as well, but I've got a double conundrum. I'm also behind on the food, so I'm balancing it. Whatever you give, we'll put it to good work. If you definitely want to participate in the Christmas shoe program, do that, but also consider the food program as well. $1 a day feeds a child 2 meals a day for 30 days. All right, ladies and gentlemen, it's time for the meme roulettes. I'm back in the studio, so I have our trusty globe, and it's ready to do it. It's where we steal memes from around the world, and we steal as many as we can until even the Chinese gong us out and say you have stolen enough intellectual property theft that even makes the Chinese uncomfortable. So let's do it. You ready? Round around the globe we go. Where we steal the memes from, no one knows. Make sure you're very careful with the placement of your Christmas decoration. Yeah, you can see the ho 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 on the mantle. Probably bad placement on the that's a bad place for the Christmas decoration. Little advice: rearrange. Don't do that. Put that somewhere else. Round around the globe we go. Where we steal the meat. Some of you got relatives. You're like, yeah, I'm going to put my family there. There was a time when it all assumed he had lost a bet, but now it's just a Democrat. If you got to see the photo of this one, standing on the photo, dressed like a hooer, and it's a man. And yeah, I assume he's lost a bet or he's insane, but now he's just probably a liberal. Round around the globe we go. Where we steal the memes from, no one knows. Babylon Bee headline: special needs community demands people stop comparing them to Tim Waltz. Retarded. Tim says people are driving by his house and screaming retarded. And then I saw a meme where there's a traffic jam of people waiting to drive by Tim Waltz's house and let him know he's retarded. Babylon Bee. Special needs says, please don't do that. Round around the globe we go. Where we steal the memes from, no one knows. Liberal lesson of the day: drug smuggling boat. And that's a fishing boat. So they're just bombing the fishermen. No, that's different. There's the fishing boat and there's the drug smuggling boat. We need you to get those two separated in your head. They're different. Round around the globe we go. Where we steal the memes from, no one knows. Don't mess with me. I'm a wooden spoon, lead paint, no car seat, no bike helmet, pickup, bed riding, garden hose drinking survivor. All the Gen Xers out there say, amen, that's me. Don't mess with me. I've survived the wooden spoon beatings, the lead paint, the car seat with no car seat, the no bike helmet, riding in the bed of a pickup, and I drank for the garden hose as well. Don't mess with me. Amen. Round around the globe we go, where we steal the means from no one knows. Our globe's not working very well. Marriage is when your wife calls you their best friend, then side-eyes you for eating chips too crunchily. Anybody get the evil eye? We should do a topic like that. That's the question of the day. What is it that causes your spouse or significant other to give you that side eye? Yeah. Make a list. Round around the globe we go, where we steal the memes from no one knows. If I drunk text you, don't text me the next morning and ask what I meant. I'm just as confused as you are. Yeah, what did you mean by this text? I don't even know. Remember, I don't know. I'm confused too. Lesson learned. Round around the globe. WD-40. Round around the globe we go, where we still, it likes going that way. We're out. China has sounded off the intellectual property. Thank you very much. All right, ladies and gentlemen, the headline on my screen says, I wish I were in Rwanda. I actually kind of do. I told yesterday, I saw producer Chad and some people, I said, I actually miss being there already. Look forward to going back all the time. If you'd like to make a donation, today would be a great day to do so. Riverspromise.org, riverspromise.com. Year end is coming, and we could use all the help we could get as we wind up this year. And being honest with you, we're a little bit short. Matter of fact, I look at it, sometimes I think we're a lot short, and God provides, and he may be able to use you to do so. Make a donation today, riverspromise.org, riverspromise.com works also, and I'd love to hear from you. Indeed, I shall. Ladies and gentlemen, until we meet again tomorrow morning, I'm back in the studio here. I always appreciate back. Roger says, welcome back. Doing God's work in Rwanda, having a huge impact. I only give my husband the side eyes when he's driving. Hopefully your husband doesn't see because he's watching. Jimmy needs some ruby red slippers so he can get back and forth to Rwanda more easily. Boy, that'd be fantastic. I'd love to. Yeah, I do need some. Maybe I just need ruby red slippers because I'd feel pretty. Very. That was a joke, Delilah. Don't buy me any ruby red slippers. Well, you could, I guess. I like to feel pretty. Ladies and gentlemen, God bless you. God bless America. Riverspromise.com, riverspromise.org. Go like us, subscribe to us on all the podcast platforms. That includes Spotify, iHeart, Apple Podcasts, Podbean. If you're listening on those apps right now, hello from the past, and send us an email, info@jimmylakey.com. Thanks to Sherry Cree and all the great people that participated in today's program. I am Jimmy Lakey. God bless you. God bless America. Jimmy Lakey. Peace. I'm out of here.